This is the final project for LDT 566 by Sam Sinque and Reagan Swigart. The problem that we would like to focus on when using technology in an educational context is the concern of the impact of the digital divide. We are going to take a look at how the digital divide affects people that have a lower economic status and special needs, as well as discuss how the digital divide affects students' understanding of reliable resources, digital literacy, and digital footprint. At the end of this video, we will explore solutions we believe will help narrow the gap of the digital divide and try to give every student an equal opportunity to learn and showcase their potential. Although technology is a great tool to utilize in teachers' lessons and assignments, there may be a handful of students that will be at a disadvantage because they do not have the resources and tools to utilize technology. A viewpoint of Kathleen Norris and Elliot Soloway is that for technology to make any type of impact on instruction, computers need to be at a one-to-one ratio, which in marginal school districts is likely not possible due to the lack of budget and funds put towards technology. Even if all school districts were able to have a one-to-one student-computer ratio, a student's culture and social economic status may change the way that they utilize technologies and may also make them more skeptical about where, when, and why they utilize technologies. Collins and Halverson state, high-quality teachers are leaving high-poverty areas for higher pay or other occupations. This leaves students in low-income areas at a disadvantage compared to students in higher-income areas, as they are not always getting the same quality of education. Technologies are marketed to the rich, but schools have to try to keep up with multimedia to try and close the gap. However, students in high-income areas have the advantage of paying for extra tutoring or take advantage of other routes of receiving education, such as home or private schooling. If these students decide to go forward with these various learning opportunities, it defeats the purpose of the public school system, which tries to make learning equitable for all students. Learners have different recognized needs that can't always be met by traditional lecture-style teaching. Needs that are rooted in psychological, intellectual, social, visual, speech, and hearing can all be benefited from the advances in technology. The article Digital Technology and Rights in the Lives of Children with Disabilities points out that although 2/3 of the world's nearly 3 billion internet users are from the developing world, it is estimated that only 5 to 15% of children and adults in the global South countries who require assistive technologies for societal participation have basic access to them, let alone the resources to support those practices. Dr. Laura Jana explains in her TEDx talk the wiggle skills as both having physical and intellectual restlessness. She believes that children should be taught, instead of working the wiggles out, put the wiggles to work. This applies to children with disabilities as well. The lack of adequate and meaningful representation within the digital media literacy community translates to the policies and practices that do not consider the immediate concerns or experiences of the diverse and historically marginalized communities. Alper and Goggins share in their research article, digital technologies offer children with disabilities tools and platforms for belonging and cultural exchange, hitherto denied. Yet, children with disabilities, like adults with disabilities, typically face various societal and cultural barriers to participation that bear on their rights. Digital literacy affects more than just reading and writing online. An article titled, How Digital Literacy Can Help Close the Digital Divide describes the digital literacy as the acquisition and development of critical skills that will allow individuals to use the internet in a meaningful and beneficial way. Digital literacy skills include the ability to use different platforms on the internet, evaluating sources found online, collaborating and communicating with the online community, critically thinking about the platforms and the best way to showcase learning, and understanding different values that are shown in the variety of sources or platforms. Evaluating sources online is a huge part that plays into the digital divide. When students can't tell the difference between trustworthy and reliable sources, they can fall victim to misinformation. The article, The Challenge That's Bigger Than Fake News, studied how students saw information presented to them on the internet and if they could then differentiate between reliable sources and unreliable sources. The findings brought up responses showed that rather than considering the source and the purpose of each item, students were often taken in by the eye-catching pie chart in the oil company's post. Although there was no evidence that the chart represented reliable data, students concluded that the post was fact-based. Already acknowledging that students need to be taught these skills when working in person in the classroom, we can accept that digital literacy needs to be incorporated into technology instruction. We can also acknowledge that the digital literacy divide is perpetuated by lack of access to technology. When students do not have the access and ability to practice these skills, they will never have the chance to master them. Many students do not understand the kind of impact their digital footprint is leaving and how it could be used against them in various ways. Some students may not realize how easy it is for someone to look them up with a simple Google search, which can impact their future goals, like getting into a post-secondary school or getting hired for a job in their career path. A great example was the article by Ganghaneron that discussed how one user was mortified to find that her criminal record was accessible by a search engine on the internet. We do not want students to be afraid to utilize technology. However, we do want them to be mindful of where they are sharing and inputting their personal information and cautious of how much they are sharing on social media and other websites. There are some parents and caregivers that also do not understand the implications of a negative digital footprint, so it's up to educators to give their students the tools they need to understand how to navigate the digital world. Let's explore some solutions to address the various issues we have discussed. First and foremost, schools in low-income areas need more support when it comes to having access to the same education as those in higher-income areas. If we are using standardized testing to measure who is allocated more funding for things like technology, we need to shift our mindset that schools with lower test scores have more of a need for those resources that get them to more satisfactory performance levels. With more funds being dispersed to lower income schools, school districts can offer high quality teachers, more competitive salaries compared to high income areas, as well as acquire new technologies in the classroom. Access is the first step to developing digital literacy skills. Using explicit instruction in the classroom, teachers can use technology to develop critical skills that will allow individuals to use the internet in a meaningful and beneficial way. The skills that students will learn will spill over to their understanding of their digital footprint, so they are more intentional about what they post on social media and the type of information they provide on various websites and apps. Lastly, and most importantly, teachers need the support of their administration in their schools. Teachers' beliefs about the nature of knowledge and learning and beliefs about effective ways of teaching were related to their technology integration practices. When teachers have the support from their administrators and the belief that technology is truly a tool that can help, they tend to integrate more relevant technology use in their classrooms.